I'm just gonna talk about stuff. I'm just gonna talk about stuff. I got stuff to say right now. I got some stuff to talk about. Hey kids, let's talk about some movies! Yo, do you like talking about movies, but there's just too many freaking movies? I agree! So today, kiddos, we're gonna talk about so many movies! 5 whole movies! Let's go!
Nothing for you!
Alright, so Hellraiser. I thought the new Hellraiser was fine. It was fine. Pretty good, even. But with some notable flaws and issues that did take it down a few notches from what I would have expected from David Bruckner doing Hellraiser. After all, dude did The Night House and The Ritual, not to mention freaking Southbound, so, you know, it seemed like an obvious coup to have him helm Hellraiser, if you will.
Yeah, it's really nice.
And with Clive Barker in a more active role, no less. Like, how can you lose? And I guess to be fair, we didn't lose. We just, I don't know, we won a goldfish or some shit. Amongst all the hullabaloo about, well, it's a woman pinhead, and whether it would be too woke or whatever the cunt farts are complaining about nowadays, Hellraiser 2022 doesn't do much to offend anyone's sensibilities. It's actually pretty safe in just about every way. The gore is present and pretty sick at moments, but nothing to cause your Mormon girlfriend to puke her brains out, and the story of an addict moving from pills to puzzle boxes is neither new nor particularly exciting, but works within the framing of the film. Similarly, the cinematography by Eli Bourne looks about as solid as you'd expect from someone who cut their teeth in music videos, but lacks the grit that I think most fans expect from the world of Hellraiser, something which the production designer does try to push in parts. You can definitely see it in there, for what it's worth, but, you know, it just gets beaten down by a somewhat glossy, even maybe, you could even call it sort of a cheap sheen. I don't really know how to best describe it. It's that, like, soft lighting thing that's very popular these days. Not to mention the darkness, which just, you know, dark lighting has its place, and like most of my criticisms, isn't so much a negative as much as something that I wish was done just a bit differently. I am very fond of Odessa Azion's performance as Riley, definitely the highlight of the film, even if I didn't care too much for her storyline. As far as Jamie Clayton goes, since she's obviously a big selling point, I hate to be a broken record, but she's also fine. Great, semi-overproduced voice, and a very strong presence that, if anything, I could have used more of. All of the Cenobites' designs are pretty much all interesting. I really like this one. But there's something about the angelic white approach that feels as overproduced as the rest of the film. To me, the best approach to Hellraiser is to strip it of mystery, or more specifically, to not rely on a twist to satisfy your viewer. The concoction that works for the first 2 films, in my opinion, is grit, melodrama, and, well, horniness. You could take out any or all 3 and still make a great film, of course, but if you're looking for that secret formula, I think it's best to keep things fairly indie without heading into Eastern European Weinstein quickie territory. That grit shouldn't be concealed by soft lighting and perfect makeup. It needs to feel gross and uncomfortable, not pretty. That kitchen sink melodrama, actually, Resurrection from Vinegar Syndrome, not from Vinegar, released by Vinegar Syndrome, that movie, from the guy that did Razorback. That one is a great example of how you can be slick and also just feel gross. Not quite a same level of movie, but still. You can be good looking and still feel gross. I don't feel like it really happens here.
Greater delights await.
That kitchen sink melodrama from the first film, and even Kirsty's outrageous adventure into hell and Hellbound, makes for moody and exciting storytelling, and both get their biggest twists out of the way before the halfway mark, or at least I think it's before the halfway mark.
Surreal.
Meanwhile, the drama in this latest iteration feels a bit stock and obvious for the material, thereby making it kinda boring by comparison. And finally, the horn dog factor. While there is sex in this film, it feels very Hollywood restrained, not even coming close to matching the ratings board embattled shenanigans of the original, which had to edit down the number of thrusts just to get past. That film is also far sweatier and nastier with that aspect. And really, the whole film is sweatier and nastier. And creates the feeling that we, the viewers, cannot begin to imagine the sights these monsters from hell wish to show us. Clive Barker's fiction acts in a very similar way, as far as what I'm describing, in that it's all really gross. If you ever read, especially anything that's horror from Clive Barker, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be fucking gross. The Damnation Game comes to mind, or Everville, or the other one, the other book that's part of that unfinished trilogy. This one. And actually, one last thing. Hellraiser isn't a slasher movie. Don't treat it like one. In fact, if there was one gripe that I had with this film that really pushes it away from greatness, it's that oh-so-common mistake begun in part 3 of making it just another fucking slasher movie. I guess I can at least find solace in it not being another fucking detective story, so, there's that. That's one we had a few times. That was the downfall of the last movie.
Look at what I've done. This is the love of God.
All the fucking Pinhead shit, all the stuff in the fucking house with the fucking auditor or whatever. That was fucking great. And it was a fucking detective story. It fucking sucked. Thank you. Oh, also this one's 20 minutes too long. Cut this shit down, guys. You don't need to try to hit 2 hours. You can just be 90 fucking minutes. It's fine. I did like it, I promise.
Then you have chosen.
Speaking of movies that are just a bit too long, Rob Zombie's The Munsters is a lot of fun for the first hour or so, far better than I had thought it would be, but not nearly as good as I'd hoped it would be. See, I like Rob Zombie, his music, his aesthetic, and of course his movies. I'm a little meh on Halloween. Well, the first one, the second one's fucking great. And 31 kind of farts around a bit too much for my liking, but overall, I've really enjoyed his output. Unfortunately, once we get to the Paris segment in Munsters, things start to falter, and then when we finally get to California, woof. It should be a crime to have Cassandra Peterson be a key element of the worst part of your movie. It doesn't gel, and then in the end, effectively just says, well, I guess that's all the gas in the tank. Roll credits.
I ought to belt you right in the kisser.
That said, I think the pros do outweigh the cons to some degree, especially if this is, say, background noise at a Halloween party or a lightweight entry in a horror-thon. I don't have much interest in diving deep into the Munsters because, well, it's just not that deep. But I have 2 huge positives I want to point out, considering how negative everything around this movie has been. Two big things. The first is that the cinematography, actually 3 things. The first one is that if you want the silliness of the show, it's essentially here.
What do I look like, a moron? Don't answer that. I wrote it on my hand.
Translated, but it is very much a love letter to that show. I'll give it that.
Nothing too showy.
Now, the second point is that the cinematography, which I, of course, had a lot of gripes with in that still pretty fucking awful teaser, is in fact pretty okay, all said and done. It's nothing to go gaga over, and the constant barrage of green is really obnoxious to my eyes, but most of my issues either work better in context, like with this Nosferatu clip.
I'm gonna go.
Or are outweighed by an overall good-looking, colorful world. The third thing is the acting. While there are plenty of jokes that fall flat, the comedy and energy is kept up by select members of the cast. Sherry Moon Zombie is sadly the weak link. I don't like that discourse around her. I think that she is a good actress, but she is limited, and she does need direction, and I feel like Rob kind of failed her here.
Oh, Herman.
But she's the weak link. She's the one who most feels like she's doing an impression rather than crafting a character. It doesn't help that she's surrounded by huge talent, which gets me to the good, including a surprise turn from the 7th Doctor himself, Sylvester McCoy.
So you keep telling me so.
I really enjoyed Daniel Roebuck as well as the man who will eventually become Grandpa, while Richard Brake does his usual stealing the show method of acting.
This man is Franz Pennywacker, the world's greatest pianist. I want those phalanges.
Seriously, that guy is fucking great. When I was watching Barbarian, he shows up in Barbarian, this isn't a huge spoiler, but he shows up in Barbarian, and he's like, when he shows up, he is very far away, and I should not have been able to, but immediately I was like, that's fucking Richard Brake. Hell yeah. And I was already on board the movie. Barbarian, great film. Not talking about today, but great film. fucking Second Richard Brake shows up, I'm like, fucking yeah. Yeah, boy. I should say on script.
I'm thinking of opening up a restaurant. I'm gonna call it Karma. There's no menu. You just get what you deserve.
Okay. I can actually feel my brain cells dying.
But the king of them all in the Munsters, and I know plenty of you will disagree, is Jeff Daniel Phillips as Herman Munster. I was really impressed recently with his work in 3 from Hell, and lo and behold, he knocks it out of the fucking park with his shrill, animated style.
When they made me, they broke the mold.
Even with my disappointment in the final product, I'll take 6 more of these right now if they all star Jeff Daniel Phillips. Dude's a rock star.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, moving on to number 3, Brule De Partout. Oddly enough, Brule De Partout. Brule De Partout. I need to get Justin DeClue in here. Or I Burn All Over, as us Americans say, is probably the most contentious movie I'll talk about in this. My wife just got home with sandwiches. I guess I'll have a sandwich. It's good to have a guard dog. Good to have a guard dog. So, Brule De Partout is probably the most contentious movie I'll talk about in this video, since it notably went up as a partner label with Vinegar Syndrome through the French company Pulse Video, with only 800 units that pretty much immediately sold out. And one came to my greedy, bubbly hands. What did I say? Greedy, bubbly hands? What the fuck does that mean? This one hits the ground running. Sorta. If you're into oh, by the way, there's like nothing on this disc. What are the extras? There's an interview with Bridget LaHaye. It's 12 minutes. You got a 25-minute interview with Stephen Thrower, and that's basically it. There's a digitally remastered trailer. That's all there is. So there is 37 minutes of bonus features. I watched none of them because I'm a busy boy. So if you're into Jess Franco movies, then you probably enjoy Trash with an experimental edge, and Brule De Partout starts with a dance club sequence complete with a star filter on the lens and the opening credits being read aloud rather than printed. Why? Art!
Aïda Vargas.
Chef opérateur, Alain.
Musique, Daniel White. Édition, Filmin West.
We've also got a bit of a cult renaissance it girl, Bridget LaHaye, who seems to be getting a lot of lavish releases of her work this year. Severin had a whole damn bundle with a book that included Faceless, a Franco film that I've previously reviewed, and which is, spoiler, fuckity rad. For comparison, Brule De Partout has about as much plot as Shining Sex, with which it also shares a preoccupation with, well, sex.
J'aimais voir les garçons faire pipi quand j'étais gosse.
C'était donc hier matin.
Gross. This is through and through a Franco fuck flick, with LaHaye and her beau played by Didier Aubriot. I should have looked up the names before I did this video. Fuck.
Didier Aubriot.
Operating as the seductive agents of a human trafficking ring. In the opening fuckaroo, they seduce, anally bang, and drug a 16-year-old, played by the lovely Francophile Susan Hemingway-Natch, whom they meet at the aforementioned club. But, just after she's been shipped off to her new life of servitude, our nefarious duo find out that she's the child of some rich guy who is offering a $5 million reward for her safe return. How are the Duke boys gonna get out of this mess? Once the plot, such that it is, gets going, it's a cacophony of vulgarity and dark sexual thriller elements that will fit nicely within any multi-day coke-fueled Franco marathon, preferably when everyone's hankering for something a little bit more downbeat. You know, that moment during every party. This one feels more Marquis de Sade than most of the Maestro's actual de Sade adaptations, and for the real Franco heads, we even get an Al Pereira, this time played by one-off actor Jean Ferrer. For those not in the know, Pereira was a morally gray detective character used in a ton of Franco flicks dating back to 1965's Attack of the Robots, and played a handful of times by the one and only Antonio Manz. Here he doesn't make much of an impression, but it's always nice to see certain familiar elements of the Franco extended universe. Plus, dope hat, bro. Brule De Partout's cinematography is a mite darker than usual, just a mite, more reliant on shadows and warm tones. An interesting approach, no doubt informed primarily by cinematographer Alain Hardy, whose work here recalls his earlier photography in Furies Sexuelles. So yeah, if you like your Franco sexy, sleazy, and maybe a little bleak, but with all the comforts of Frank home, Brule De Partout is a solid entry in his filmography. Next up, Mansion of the Living Dead. Another recent Blu-ray release in the Franco world is Mansion of the Living Dead, released by Severin and, unlike Brule De Partout, still available from a US distributor. So thanks for not making this stupid limited, guys. I appreciate it. Since I just waxed poetic about Franco, I'll keep this one short. Mansion of the Living Dead is effectively Uncle Jess's 80s take on Tombs of the Blind Dead, going so far as to even include variations on two of that film's locations, a monastery, of course, and a hotel. And that's about it. This is one of those, we ain't got much money, so this place is gonna be abandoned kind of films. And boy howdy, I eat that shit up. It's not nearly as nihilistic as Tombs, and being a Franco picture, the makeup is, not great, but you get a lot of quality work from Franco mainstays Lina Romay and Antonio Manz, not to mention an incredibly memorable turn from Eva Leon, whom you might remember from an actual super limited Severin Franco Blue, Bahia Blanca, which I also nabbed. I'm on it, guys. I'm fucking on it. Oh man, Franco, it's like blood in the water, baby. Oh, give me that Franco.
Y me llama su perrita.
In keeping with the times, the Franco times that is, this picture includes a metric shit ton of nudity, to the point of parody, honestly. It's just tits abounds, as well as some less than savory sexual assault that could not have been more clumsily written into the script. This isn't top tier Franco, but it is definitely what you would expect. Good times.
Pipí.
And finally, just to make my word count, let's talk about Disney's latest attempt at doing something different while keeping all of the same bullshit that usually stymies their product, Werewolf by Night. I appreciate that a lot of people love this movie, but I was left a bit wanting.
Thanks in advance for making it quick.
On one hand, I'm not terribly precious about Jack Russell as a character. He definitely has some good stories, but of all the heroes and anti-heroes the MCU has adapted, he is certainly one of the more malleable. Gael Garcia Bernal is extremely likable in the role and brings to it a certain emotional availability that seems to just kind of come free of charge when casting him in a role. So good shit there. Good job hiring amazing actors with your billions of dollars, Disney. I also had some good fun with Laura Donnelly as Elsa Bloodstone, and I hope to see both of them more in the MCU going forward. However, outside of some funny bits and bobs and some imaginative direction here and there from composer turned director / composer Michael Giacchino, as well as, I'll be honest, great use of Man-Thing. I did love Man-Thing. Straight up, Man-Thing was great.
Ted?
Anyway, this nearly hour-long attempt at stylishness feels kind of aimless, kind of just like an afterthought. The initial premise is great, that, it's this group of rich hunters going after a mysterious monster in like a maze type situation. Great idea. But it's tossed aside pretty early on, seemingly just so it can try and feel clever. And that's too bad, because if ever there was a time to keep it simple, stupid, it's here. We already know he's a fucking werewolf. Just get on with the hunting plot. I don't care how sick as fuck the transformation sequence is. It's really great. Do it earlier. Just do it earlier. Now, like Munsters and to a lesser degree Hellraiser, I still enjoyed myself, but like the former film, I just felt like it could be so much more, especially with such a limited runtime. And also, like Munsters, there is a standout, and that is the one and only Harriet Sansom Harris, whom you might remember from her memorable but small role in Licorice Pizza. She plays our primary antagonist, and man, she fucking eats in this role. God damn.
A friend. A lover without equal.
Her plus that aforementioned transformation really make the whole endeavor worthwhile. Anywho, those are my quick thoughts on 5 films, both recent and recently released on Blue. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and until next time, go watch a movie.